Hello, and thank you for your interest in the Landmarks of American History and Culture grant program offered by the National Endowment for the Humanities. My name is Jason Harshman, a program officer in the Division of Education and part of the leadership team for this program. This webinar is designed to provide examples and explanation in support of the Notice of Funding Guidelines available at the program website, which can be reached by going to neh.gov. These guidelines are for applications submitted during the 2021 cycle to fund programs offered in 2022. Please note that this recording is not a replacement for the specific requirements laid out in the guidelines, and when questions arise, you should first reference the guidelines provided. I will begin with an overview of the purpose and goals of this program, the structure followed by these summer professional development workshops, and then move into specific requirements and questions to consider as you develop your application. Please know that we provide sample narratives and are available to answer questions and review optional draft proposals during the application process. I will discuss these further near the conclusion of this recording. As addressed on page 1 of the guidelines, Landmarks programs are designed to engage participants in the study of a place from multiple perspectives and can explore that place as it changes over time. They enhance knowledge of content through rigorous humanistic inquiry and pedagogical strategies relevant to the subject area and project theme using place-based experiential approaches. Landmarks programs can be designed around a range of topics and take place in a variety of locations across the United States and the territories, from waterways to archives to museums, in national parks, neighborhoods, homes, and churches. Project teams can bring together methods and scholarship used by public historians, archivists, librarians, and museum educators on a range of topics that can include government and civics, literature, the arts, architecture, and a host of other subjects. A desired outcome of Landmarks program is the development of curricular materials to be used in respective classrooms and communities by the participants. So what do Landmarks programs offer? Landmarks programs are offered as 2 one-week workshops. A typical schedule will run a workshop for 5 or 6 days during 1 week. Then the team will take a break and reconvene that next week for 5 to 6 days. During each week, 36 educators attend for a total of 72 across the total program. We do ask that Landmarks program project directors reserve a few spaces each week for educators who have worked in the profession for fewer than 5 years. Landmarks participants receive a stipend of $1,300 to offset program-related costs such as travel and lodging. The audience for a Landmarks program can include a mix of social studies, literature, and art history teachers, as well as librarians and media specialists from public, private, charter schools, as well as homeschool educators. Having a diverse group of participants enriches the ways in which discussions and experiences are analyzed and ultimately enjoyed. Programs provide access to essential source materials, including but not limited to primary texts, documents, oral histories and artifacts, as well as archival resources, and engage participants in learning opportunities such as visits to museums, walking tours, and public performances. Programs provide educators with new ways of approaching their K-12 learning humanities curricula through a place-based and experiential approach that they can then transfer to their classroom. As noted earlier, at neh.gov, for the Landmarks project page, we offer example applications with narratives and highlight past projects to help you as you create your program and complete your application. The most southern place on Earth takes educators to multiple sites across the Mississippi Delta to explore history, music, and culinary traditions. A unique aspect of this program is the use of a mobile classroom, that is a bus on which teachers participate in discussions and view films as they travel from one site to another. The Tales from the Chihuahuan Desert project offers lesson plans, a robust reading list, and a specific day-to-day schedule at their project website to illustrate not only what is being discussed day to day, but where they are going and how it all fits into the larger conceptualization of their project. The Long Road from Brown includes a humanities scholar and education professor as project co-directors who lead sessions that they are then able to show how you can seamlessly blend the content that is discussed with the practice and implementation in the classroom by teachers. Although different in their central topics, each of these projects address history, citizenship, race, and immigration as just some of the topics that can be addressed through a humanities-centered, place-based approach to K-12 professional development. Each of these projects also asks participants to develop and share the materials they create for their respective classrooms and makes those available at their respective websites as part of their project dissemination plan. I'm highlighting these projects because as we move forward with the components of the application, you will see where these examples fit, and this should help you better see what your program can do. Before we go any further, it is important to ensure that you are affiliated with an eligible organization or institution because this program prohibits individuals from applying. Institutions of higher education, state or local government agencies, or Native American tribal governments are all eligible to apply. Federal entities, foreign organizations, and for-profit organizations are ineligible to apply. Eligible institutions can work with external directors and visiting scholars and can also collaborate and partner with other organizations. This means that official affiliation with a host institution is not required. For example, if you are a scholar of the American Revolution at an institution in, say, Oklahoma or Ohio or Oregon, you could design a program with the Museum of the American Revolution or another relevant organization or institution, and they could serve as the host institution. As a matter of programmatic policy, NEH will not make awards in the Landmarks program for the same project in consecutive years. Applications submitted in consecutive years must be for projects that are substantially different from the previously awarded project. For example, institutions that led a landmarks workshop during summer 2020 on Emily Dickinson and the U.S. Civil War would be eligible to apply for a summer 2021 Landmarks Institute with a project that instead focuses on Emily Dickinson and Romanticism. Landmarks and sites may be repeated, but different humanities themes for the new project are required. Project directors who are unsure about the applicability of this rule are advised to consult with NEH program staff. Letters A through F here constitute the main components of the application narrative that should be no more than 15 double-spaced pages with 1-inch margins and a font of no smaller than 12. As I move through the next few slides, I will address specific examples and questions to assist with the development of your application. Where you see screenshots of questions, as presented here, I am making reference to specific questions included in the guidelines that are used as part of the application evaluation process. This constitutes the evaluation criteria that you can find under Section E on page 27 within the NOFO. I'll begin with the intellectual content and significance of your program. This constitutes the humanities content plus the significance of the topics and sites to instruction and classroom learning in a K-12 environment. Here you will discuss how what is read, what is discussed, and where you go all come together under the overarching concepts and themes of your program. You want to think about the relationship and illustrate how they come together by way of the speakers, by way of the readings, by way of archival materials, and sites that you will visit. Here you want to think about the why now. What makes this compelling? How is the scholarship compelling? Why are these sites essential to the telling of the history of this topic and understanding it from multiple perspectives so that you can then bring it back to the classroom. While programs must be open to all educators, it may be the case that you see your program as being more applicable to work done at certain grade levels, and we ask that in the introductory section of your application that you indicate the grade levels you consider to be the most appropriate. As you move through the intellectual content and significant section, as well as for the duration of your application, please be mindful of jargon that may be specific to a particular field and not understood by a humanities generalist. It is important to differentiate between the work plan and the program of study required within your application. A work plan is about your team and how they will work between the start of the grant through the start of your Landmarks program. That is, who will be responsible for what aspects of pulling the program together, be it reaching out and inviting scholars, to pulling together the reading list that will be distributed to participants, to working on securing housing or identifying places that you would be visiting and perhaps even having a meal together at. The program of study is what participants will study, scholars will discuss, and your site-based experiences will address. The application requires that you provide a day-to-day schedule as one of the attachments. So you want to use the program of study section not as an annotated schedule, but rather as an explanation of the rhyme and reason of how the week unfolds. For example, will you have an overarching essential question for the week and/or compelling questions or two for each day to ground the discussions and experiential opportunities? How will readings and lectures lead to discussion? What is happening at the sites that you visit? Additionally, how will the education specialist engage with participants? How much curricular time work will be provided, and how might that be organized, be it by grade levels, groups according to specific subject areas of study and teaching, and so on. The program of study is your opportunity to really take us into the humanities learning as part of your program and make it come alive so that we can actually see and imagine the days unfolding. Who will make up your project team? A Landmarks project director is typically the humanities specialist. However, there can be a co-director, and oftentimes this is done to help not just with a shared workload, but because of the expertise of those who will be involved in the project. For instance, perhaps you are a scholar of the American Revolution and you have a colleague at another institution, or you want to work with a museum studies or museum educator specialist who will be heavily involved in the experiential opportunities provided to attendees. In this case, you may find it helpful to share the director responsibilities. An education specialist is required to be part of the team and involved during the planning and implementation of your program. This may be a curriculum leader. This could be a teacher education and curriculum development professor. This could also be a previous participant, meaning a teacher who stood out during a previously offered program who you believe would work well with the teachers. A program specialist can also serve as a co-director. You will note that your replacement director must be provided within the application. This is required because there are emergencies and other reasons when project directors have needed to step out of the project. So we ask that a replacement director be identified. Of course, it should be someone familiar with the project, and you will need to provide the proper explanation as to their responsibilities as well as their qualifications to serve as a project director. The institutional grant administrator will help with handling budgeting and institutional requirements on your end, as well as the interactions with the NEH. The grant administrator must be different from the project director or project directors. The intellectual significance of your program relies heavily on the quality of the scholars and presenters you invite to lead sessions with the participants. Who can help you ensure your Landmarks program will address multiple perspectives and multiple ways of interpreting places and topics within your program? Grant funding is frequently used to bring scholars and experts to the program location, as well as to work with site-based experts such as museum docents, oral historians, and local historians available at the site area. We also encourage you to consider the role that can be played by public historians at nearby institutions of higher education, as well as libraries and historical societies. In your application, you will need to address how, if funded, you will promote your program to recruit teachers from across the country. Keep in mind that you want to build a diverse applicant pool, and all programs need to be open to teachers across the country and in the territories. Consider how you will use social media, email listservs, conference networks, and other ways of reaching educators to recruit participants to participate in your summer 2022 program. As important as the impact is the dissemination of the ideas after your program concludes. We ask you to develop a plan for how your work and the work of those who participate in your program will be shared. This can be part of the public history and public humanities approach to extending the reach of your project. We encourage you to be creative and think about classroom impact. This may include attending a conference and presenting on your workshop, as well as the humanities content, of course, that teachers engaged with. You may want to organize a professional development workshop for a local school district or offer that professional development opportunity through an online platform for greater reach. What we're asking within the dissemination component of your application is to think through how beyond the end of the 2 weeks in the summer of 2022, the work that you do and the work that teachers do can be extended to a larger audience. Programs cannot advocate a particular position on a political issue, make space for participants to carry out actions that advocate a particular point of view in their classroom, or present a program that leans heavily toward one interpretation of an historical event or era. Reading lists and invited speakers help to create a learning environment in which participants are able to investigate sources and draw conclusions on their own. As the National Endowment for the Humanities, we support the study of art history and music, but programs that focus on the creative arts and creative writing or delve into the social sciences will not be eligible. Additionally, funds cannot be used for tuition remission for graduate students who may serve on the project team, and the NEH does not fund meals and social gatherings. However, funds can be budgeted when it is difficult to access or due to the length of a trip or the location of a site, an opportunity to stop and have a meal. Tax can be included in your budget. A complete list of funding prohibitions can be found on page 24 of the Notice of Funding Opportunity Guidelines. When you've pulled everything together and you've brought together the attachments as well as the main body of the narrative, you're ready to apply. You must apply using grants.gov and sam.gov. You'll want to make sure that since you are applying as an institution and not as an individual, you use your institution's information. You'll want to check with your grant administrator at your institution to find this information and make sure that it is up to date. This process can take a while to complete, and so you are advised to start this immediately. Page 18 through 20 of the Notification of Funding Opportunity Guidelines provides information on how to complete this, and as you see from the screenshot, there is information provided at the Landmarks of American History and Culture project page available at neh.gov. Applications for the 2021 grant cycle were posted on January 8th and will remain open for 60 days. Drafts are optional and can be completed in the most efficient format that works for you. Of course, the more complete, the more helpful the feedback that can be provided. We aim to complete these and return them as quickly as possible, but please keep in mind that drafts submitted closer to or on the due date of February 8th may take longer to return. If you think you would prefer to have a phone conversation to answer questions rather than submit a draft in any form or length that you complete, please reach out to schedule a call. At the conclusion of this recording, I will provide an email and phone number through which you can contact us. Applications are due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern on March 9th. Instructions on how to submit your application through grants.gov are provided in the NOFO. Please note, only complete applications submitted by the deadline will be reviewed. Incomplete applications in any capacity, including an incomplete registration at grants.gov or sam.gov, will mean that your application cannot be reviewed. The review process will take place during April of 2021. Review panels consist of humanities scholars, past Landmarks project directors, and educators who have participated in a Landmarks program. If you think it would benefit you to learn about the process more before applying, you can serve as a panelist and are invited to contact us about how to do that. Please note, if you serve on a panel, you cannot be a current NEH fellowship recipient, have an application currently under consideration with the NEH, have served on an NEH panel during the last year, or applied to lead a Landmarks program during the next cycle. After the application review process concludes and recommendations are made, then the National Council for the Humanities will convene in July of 2021 to discuss and make final recommendations. As noted in the guidelines, on average, we have awarded 14 grants for this program over each of the last 3 years, but please know that this is not a ceiling. We do not know going into any review panel process or when the National Council for the Humanities convenes how many programs will ultimately be funded. The 14 that have been funded on average over the last 3 years, again, is only an average. Following the convening of the National Council, notification of awards will be made in August of 2021, and the grants will begin in October of 2021 for those programs slated to run in summer of 2022. If you would like a program officer in the Division of Education to review a draft or to answer questions by phone about your Landmarks program application, you can email your draft to landmarks@neh.gov or give us a call at 202-606-8500. We look forward to hearing from you and hopefully working with you on a program of your own. Thank you again for your time and interest in the NEH's Landmarks of American History and Culture program.